Thank you. I would also like to introduce myself. I don't know if I did, but my name is Lindsay and I work here at the Lumaprints Marketing Department. And I'm also accompanied by my team members. And here in the office, I'm with Sarah here as well. So let's get started. So for this one here, as you can see, I'm on the back end of a Shopify. I just made the Shopify yesterday. And one of the things that when it comes to creating wall art listings is specifically, just starting with your assortment of products. And I want to emphasize the different types of products that you could be selling and how then making the listing could come into play, specifically when you want to work with a fulfillment partner like Lumaprints. And so some of the questions I've received in the past have been like, oh, how do I, have you guys as a fulfillment partner? And then how do things like having other products like t-shirts come into play? So we'll cover those bases. But focusing on this product page, I wanted to show you the type of items I have here just to give you a small example. So we have paper prints, we have a canvas print, and we have a t-shirt. So if we go to my website, the way that I went about it for not only as a vendor or a store owner, but as a customer, I want to make sure that when my customers enter my store, they can see what products I provide or specifically what type of products I provide from the get-go. It just allows them to see clearly what they're going to be purchasing or what they want to purchase. And adding navigation is always great. And one of the reasons why I like doing this or encourage customers to do this is because sometimes you can have paper prints and canvas prints, and you're probably wondering, like, how should I list my product? Should I list paper prints and canvas prints on the same product listing? And to that, I don't really suggest that. It's a bit more clear to see and also a bit more visual to see when you have separate product pages and for different types of products. So here I have a canvas print page, and then I also have a paper print page. And if you have some familiarity with Shopify, this could be done easily with collections, and that helps immensely with just getting things sorted. And even with collections, I do make sure to include things like paper print in the title, just so customers are always highly aware of what product they're going to be buying along the way. Okay. And then I think that we could also have apparel here too, just to make sure that it's very separate from your other prints. Here, it's not necessarily a hard case, but sometimes, people have the same design on their art prints as they do for their apparel. So, just having those separate designated areas for each product type is very useful. And when I get customers inquiring about like, sometimes I have multiple types of items to fulfill, and it can be tricky to start seeing what fulfillment partner I'll be sending what to. When you have a collection that says canvas prints, and when you have a title that says canvas prints, and if we look internally as well on this selection, I also tagged it. And then I also listed it as a product category, so there's no confusion. And sometimes if you don't have those types of indicators, it can be tricky, especially when you get those high volume orders and you're starting to get a lot of customers coming in. It's just good to have checkpoints along the way, and that starts from the collection, right? Another item, this is specific to if you're selling on Marketplace. And for the Marketplace, this is in reference to Amazon, Etsy, and stores like those, where you go in and you sell product listings, less so than a store front. And so for Shopify, you don't have to worry about it too much, but it's good to always add and spruce up your product title. So for here, for example, I have palm trees canvas print, but then it's also good to do, botanical plant, and then add things to it. And this is primarily just to help with your SEO, and also by that I mean search engine optimization. And what's important about that is because you're in a marketplace which is very competitive, oftentimes you need to kind of be able to have like a large net. And to cast a large net, usually you just need to add some key items onto your product listing, either through the title, which is probably one of the more visible and useful ways, and also in your descriptor. As you can see here, I focused for my description on Shopify, just like some of the important keynotes that someone would take into consideration for a product. But for, say, an Etsy or an Amazon, it's also good to then try to sprinkle in keywords that might have to do with your image, such as sunset, palm trees, emphasizing other things, beach, and all that other item. So that's one of the things that I think you should note when it's coming to creating the product title listing. And so circling back to the descriptor, I know that for some people adding the description, is kind of an afterthought, or you kind of don't know what to add into it. But my general formula for that is pretty straightforward, which is talk a little bit about the image and then go into the quality of the print. And so with that option, you also want to make more visible what type of options you provide. And so for here, for example, I'm letting customers know what type of canvas they're going to expect when it comes to the purchase they'll be making. And these are some of the items that I took from lumaprints.com. And so with your fulfillment partner, make use of those descriptors that they have on their websites about their products and why their products are useful for your store. Your customers would probably like to see some of that quality being showcased in the product description as well, because while they might really like the image, you do want to hit home that sale by just ensuring that the descriptor has everything they are probably thinking about. And so things like that, having a little care option also shows to your customers that you're very keen on making sure that they're very well aware of how to maintain their product once they receive it, and that you care a little bit more. It's just that little added bonus, I think, that helps make up descriptor go a long way. Let me exit out of here though, and let me show you another product listing where we can talk about the imagery. Again, I just created the store for the sake of demonstration, but I wanted to showcase here specifically some of the media pages, which I think I could show better over here. So for the media, or the previews rather, it's one of my recommendations is to have 3 types of imagery. That is the image on the product, the image displayed in a mock-up. And so some of these items are usually quick to make, but if you have some concerns of whether or not you're able to make this, or you're not that tech savvy, that's perfectly fine. There are some sites that help you with that. If you just Google mockup creator or mockup templates, you're more than likely to find something that can help you in that regard. And so these are some of the images I provided, and I think this is a good base to start with, just so your customers have a good idea of what the image will look like on the product, how the image looks like unedited with anything on it, just the image as is, so they know what to expect. And then of course in a mock-up, that just helps with them visualizing the image in a space. And speaking of mock-ups, the mock-up here I try to align it somewhat to the image. And for you, when you're looking for mock-ups or mock-up templates, it's very good to choose neutral colors, or if you have a particular aesthetic to your artwork or the art that you're selling, try to have something for your background that encapsulates that type of imagery. And so for here, because there's some botanical elements and it's very nature-esque, I chose a overall neutral palette mock-up. but I also added some greenery just for some editorial edge. And so um, seeing this is a bit more visually appealing to the customer than if I were to show it in, say, a more countryside mock-up, for example. So being keenly aware of how to showcase your art goes a long way, and it helps customers visualize it in their space. All right, now that we kind of talked about, I guess, the front face part of the product, which is, the title, the descriptor, and the imagery, we could go into the back end, which does have a bit more details that might be useful for you upon, getting into creating product listings. And so for here, we can go into the variants. And so going back to what I was discussing about how when you're listing a product listing, whether you want to add paper prints or canvas prints into one product listing or to keep them separate. Here, the variants are very important, and I think that they showcase how clean and organized you can have your products, and that way you don't have to worry about any mess ups or any misorders when you're ordering products for your customer, or if your fulfillment partner is also fulfilling for your store. So here I am doing the canvas print. And one of the things that I want to have as a variety is the size and whether or not it's going to be framed. And so these are just some sizes I pulled. And I have a small, a medium, and a large, which are the three um, sizes that I suggest for the most part. Offering an extra large is great too, especially if you have a customer base that's really open to buying that size. But generally, what you don't want to do is offer too many sizes where it just becomes like it's hard for a customer to choose between an 11 by 14 and say a 12 by 18, for example. So just keep an eye out for that. And then for framing, I think I always suggest framing to customers as an option to provide for their clients, only because sometimes they want a more upgraded, a more elevated product, and you get more money at the end, so you get a higher profit. So I always suggest having that more luxurious option available for your customers. And so also, when you're done with your variants, I think what it looks like on here is very, clean, and your customers know what they're buying. I wish I had an example to showcase, but the opposition would be showing just the image on the coast print and then having, canvas art, framed, not framed size, and all that. It's an extra variant, but it's also a little bit more thinking for your customer than it needs to be. So here, I definitely suggest just keeping it to one product per product listing. Even if it's the same image, it's okay. And if you're ever wondering, like, oh, well, I don't want to have multiple product listings with the same image, and I rather just have it on one product listing, that's what the collections are very useful for. And so here we have canvas print of this image, and then if you go into paper prints, for example, I have the same image, but you won't necessarily see them in the same listing, if you will. Like here, you don't see two of them, you only see the one because it's paper prints. And so keeping them separate is a really good way to ensure that you don't get duplicate products on one page. And it just keeps your overall website very clean and open for navigation for your customer. Okay. Um, and then once you have those variants set up, Shopify, and I'm pretty sure other stores do this as well, but they now have cleanly set up your listings so you could then price each variant accordingly. And you could imagine that once you decide to add in more than two products, it can become a long list. And so having about 6 to 8 variants is a good way to go for the most part. It prevents confusion on your end and also the customer's end. So for that, variants are very useful, but also be sure not to busy it too much, essentially. Other things to keep in mind for your products is things like your product type. I think wherever they ask for information about your product, it's good to add it in. I like using the tags for the imagery type. So here I put photography and coastal. And the reason why I did this is because if you ever want to host a sale, if you ever want to highlight a product genre, this is a great way to create a collection really fast, because all you have to do then is go into collections and then create one, and they have product tag, and you could go with your tags that you used. And so it's a really great way to just categorize your images even further and internally. So having an internal collection, an internal way of navigating your products is really useful, especially when you want to quickly create a sale or a collection for a specific season. And so and it's super useful too, because there's so much more you can do with just the tags. For example, you could, if for me, I guess my imagery will fall more into summer type of imagery. So I would go for summer collection. And then I could also add in botanical, coastal, which I already added, but further adding those tags just helps you as a store owner be more readily prepared when you're ready to do something interesting or freshen up your store as well, if you ever want to change your featured collection on your front page. All right, and then let's go back to the product listing. And now, say you only have one product on your store that you want to sell. Let's give it canvas print. Let's say you're only interested in selling canvases and nothing more. And so for you, you don't feel the need to add in canvas, and you rather just be on the coast print. That's perfectly fine too. And especially if it's the only product you plan on selling for your customers. Um, it's always good practice though, just so in case in the future you decide to add different variety, it's a good to familiarize yourself with SKUs. I don't know if any of you guys use SKUs right now, but this is very useful, especially as you start building up a lot of products. And so what SKUs are is basically your internal way of kind of identifying each specific product. And by that, I mean not just the imagery and not just the product, but the image, product, the size, and also whether or not it's framed for here, for example. And so for this item, while for example, Lumaprints, when we receive an order from your end, it will have the title, it will have the variant, and that's what we'll receive. But say, your titling is different, say your sizing is small instead of 11 by 14, or something else is added to your variants that, is for your internal need, then a good way to know what type of product you're receiving on Lumaprints end is then helping with the SKU. And so, for example, for this one, we could create a SKU convention right now. We know the title is called On the Coast, so we can do On the Coast, 11 by 14, and then framed canvas. And again, this is very useful, especially if you're thinking about changing your variant types. So here we have these size options, but say you yourself decide to add small, medium, and large. Well, now that you have new SKUs, or rather you have now this type of wording to your variants, it will populate like that for your fulfillment partner. They won't know what size. And so the SKU, as so long as you keep it relatively in the same, as long as you add the relevant details, it'll be very helpful to have for you and also your fulfillment partner. And again, this is giving you more options to customize your front end however you please, while also keeping track of how your back end looks like and making sure that's organized on that end. And I think that's about it for showcasing what kind of items to look out for when it comes to starting a Shopify and or updating your Shopify to be a bit more compatible with fulfillment partners and or your customers. I think that's about it. So if anyone has any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. I could open up the chat right now.
I do have a couple of questions.
Yes.
Sorry, let me turn my camera on. There we go. So I've recently opened an Etsy shop, and I have a couple listings of my artwork. I've only just started, so I haven't added a lot yet, but I've connected my shop to Lumaprints, but now I don't know what to do when I go into Etsy and I create a listing. If somebody wants to order a print, how does that go automatically to Lumaprints?
Yeah, so what we receive from your store, if your store is properly linked to us, is we'll receive the details of your order. So we'll receive the preview of your image, we'll receive the name and also your customer shipment information. So the first step is to then process that order manually. But if you're not receiving that order at all, then that's a technical issue that rarely occurs, but does happen from time to time. Then you could connect with our customer service team. But for the most part, the general idea is that we receive the information, and the first time you fulfill for us, you will fulfill it on your end. So you'll go in, you'll choose the image, you'll choose the details on lumaprints.com, such as the size, the product type, and your customer information will populate there as well. And then you proceed with processing the order. From there, if another customer orders it again, but it's someone else, we still keep the information of the product itself. So say they ordered a image with an 11 by 14 image of a seagull. Once a customer orders it the first time, then we'll receive information again, and all you have to do is either turn on automatic processing, or you can just press process order. So it's up to you how you want to go about that. We do offer the option, I believe, still, Sarah. And so with the new website, we are developing ourselves a bit more, but as of right now, that's the standard procedure.
Okay, so the first time I fulfill it manually,
Yes.
and the next time it just does it automatically?
Yes, you have the option to turn it on automatically, so it just goes through without you having to go in and process it, or you can still keep on fulfilling it. All you would have to do is just click through, but you no longer have to select those options because we have that ready for you.
Okay. So my next question, also to do with Etsy, is I'm just going to pull up one of my, just so I know what I'm looking at. So when I'm creating this listing, they want shipping details. But when you have variants, how the hell do you know what to put in for size and weight and cost of shipping and all of that?
Yeah, for sure. So what our website is very helpful with doing is that we provide a shipping calculator that should be readily available on both the new and the old site. Feel
But it
free.
all depends on their zip code.
Yes. And so, yeah, to explain further, one of the things that we suggest for customers is choosing 2 zip codes and using those as kind of your medium points. So you know a general idea of how much shipping is going to cost on the higher end. And so we tend to use a New York address, and we also use a rural address zip code. And the reason for that is because rural areas have higher shipping, and New York is the furthest one from our fulfillment center. So we use those 2 zip codes, and they'll give you a higher end price point. And from there, what we suggest for our customers is to add that cost to your product cost. of shipment. So say the shipment for a 11 by 14 is $5. Then you add those $5 to the total of your product. And then from there, it's your decision to either add free shipping or add a flat shipping rate for your customers. That way you don't have to calculate to the dollar what each product, especially for variants and sizes and different weights. This just streamlines the process for you and your customer. You don't have to think about it after you've calculated shipping the first time.
Okay, I get all that. Now, Etsy still wants to know the size and weight and like dimensions of the package. And your shipping calculator, I don't believe, says that information.
If I could have someone chime in, because I think that I do have some team members that are a bit more aware of how to have those information readily available. Of course, if you still want that information, our CS team is more than open to giving you that information for whatever sizes you would like of our packaging and or the weight of our packages, since we fulfill those all the time. I'm in the marketing end, so I don't know each size, but our CS team handles that every day, and they will be a bit more informative on that. So all you have to do is let us know at contact@Lumaprints. Or right now, one of my coworkers can also connect with you after this chat.
Sure. Yeah, because I think some of your like smaller prints, I generally order paper prints. So some of them are shipped flat in an envelope, I believe.
Yes.
Some of them in tubes. So there's that difference too.
Of course, yeah. We generally have a standard size. Of course, off the top of my head, I don't remember the size, but I believe we stick with small prints, and after a certain size, we do move it up to tube, and it's standard for all sellers. So at least you know that once you go past that, I believe it's like 8 by 10 inches. From there, we then go to tube. So if it's bigger than that, but we'll let you know and we'll connect with you after this so you know specifically what the sizes are, so you could let Etsy know.
Okay. Is there anybody else on? Like, am I taking up too much air?
No, you're fine. If we have any other questions, then this is open office hours. Anyone's open to ask questions. So if you have another one, let me know.
Yeah, just a small question. I'm in Canada, and so I use you guys for my American orders, which are the majority of my orders. So in my website store, I have a WooCommerce store. I don't have it connected to Lumaprints because I don't know how to like determine if it's going to an American, then I use Lumaprints. If it's a Canadian order, I don't use Lumaprints because of the shipping cost. So I don't know if it's possible to link my store just for American orders.
Unfortunately, my familiarity with WooCommerce is limited, but if it's anything similar to how Shopify's back end looks like, they do allow shipping profiles, and I think other e-commerce stores do this. So you could have a different address from a fulfillment partner that depends on what country your customer orders from. So it'll designate it for you on the WooCommerce backend if they have a similar structure like Shopify.
Okay. Okay. I think that's all my questions.
Right. Thank you.
One other suggestion, depending on your order volumes, if it's just a small handful of orders, then it may be okay just to manually route it. There are online like SaaS platforms, like Order Desk is one example, that can help route orders for you automatically based on, let's say, whatever criteria that you want, either like by country of sale is definitely one of them. Some people who sell like t-shirts and prints together in one shop, like we don't make t-shirts, so then they use that platform or some other platforms to route the t-shirts to one fulfillment partner and then route their prints to us also. So If it's not a lot of orders, then it doesn't. They obviously charge a fee for that for their service. So if it's not a lot of orders, then just manually routing it or manually placing the orders might make more sense.
Yeah, that's what
If
I've been doing.
yeah, if you find that your volumes are increasing a lot, then and you want to create more automation around that, then at that point, that's also an option.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ken. Right. Any other questions?
I just want to add, hi, Sarah. Sarah here as well on the back end. I just want to let you know that the questions that you were asking, Lindsay, right here, is if you're interested in learning more about the ordering site and like how to connect your Etsy store and how to continue using the automated process, there's a webinar too, and I'm going to be linking our YouTube channel as well. But webinar 2 helps kind of step by step show you how to do so. And then in regards to shipping and the shipping costs, we also talked about how you can price that into your pricing in webinar 6 or the last week's webinar. So that kind of helps as well if you want to build in your shipping into your prices and
Great,
how to
thank
do
you.
that.
Thanks.
Thank you, Sarah. Right. Perfect. She just linked the YouTube channel. Feel free to go check over there for our past webinars. Last week, we talked about, what did we talk about last week? Oh yeah, we were talking about pricing actually. So we went really into detail about how to price your products. And it does include shipments and how that works and how, shipping a product from a fulfillment center to your customer works with you pricing your product on your storefront. So we go into all those very nuanced details about products and their pricing. All right. And if there are no other questions, thank you guys for joining us today. Our YouTube channel is at Lumaprints. We post all our webinars there. We would appreciate if you go like, subscribe, and interact with them. It lets us know which webinars are more informative. And then from there, we move to creating other webinars that are similar or provide more information around those topics. If you have a topic you would like us to cover for a future webinar, we also take those suggestions as well. And feel free to comment them on the YouTube page or let us know on Instagram, let our CS team know. We always appreciate feedback and providing this service to you guys. Again, feel free to interact with us over there on YouTube and or just participating here is great too. So thank you guys. Bye.